Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
Welcome back. You are listening to Connecting the Dots, your daily shortcut to being ridiculously well-informed. I'm Alex.
And I'm Morgan. Good morning and happy Thursday, December 18th, 2025. It is a classic moody morning here in Sacramento.
It really is. That dense fog we had earlier is finally starting to lift, but it looks like we're in for a mostly cloudy day, high of about 56.
Definitely a day to stay inside. And you know, nationally, we're seeing two big weather stories.
Right.
Out in the plains and the Rockies, they are dealing with some really intense high winds that's causing whiteouts up north.
Right.
And some really dangerous fire weather down south.
And closer to home.
Yeah, for us here on the West Coast, Northern California and Oregon are bracing for another atmospheric river. So heavy rain and, unfortunately, the potential for some flooding.
High impact weather, but maybe some low impact markets. Let's jump into the numbers. The close yesterday was, well, slightly optimistic.
It was. The Dow Jones closed at 48,174.19. That's up just a tiny bit, 0.15%. And the S&P 500 was pretty much the same story, closing at 6,784.94 for a gain of 0.10%. Very quiet.
Very quiet for traditional finance, but if you look over at digital assets, that's where the real movement was.
Right.
Bitcoin showed a lot of strength, closing at 88,142.74. That's a jump of 2.26% for the day.
That's a pretty robust gain. Volatility is always the name of the game there, but that shows some serious interest.
Absolutely, and that energy is actually a great segue into our first couple of stories today. We're seeing technology, regulation, and finance collide in some really unexpected ways.
For sure. But before we get into our Morningstar report, we really need to thank the sponsor that helps us bring you this analysis every single day, Old Glory.
If you are struggling with holiday shopping right now, and I know I am, especially for that person who's into tech or music or sports,
Old Glory is the place you have to check out. They're an iconic fan merch store.
They have everything, vintage band tees, the latest teen gear, seriously cool stuff, even for the, tech-savvy people in your life.
And right now, if you head over to oldglory.com and use the promo code SNARFL at checkout, they're giving you 15% off your entire purchase.
That's a great deal on some really high-quality beer. Go check them out.
All right, let's jump into our first big story. It's a feud that just will not die, and it's back in the headlines. Epic Games versus Apple.
The battle for the iPhone has officially gone global again. Epic CEO Tim Sweeney just announced that Fortnite will not be returning to iOS in Japan in 2025.
And this is huge, because Japan just put a major antitrust law into effect that was supposed to stop exactly this kind of thing.
Okay, so if the law is there to stop Apple's dominance, why is Sweeney refusing? Why isn't Fortnite just back on the platform?
Well, because Apple complied with the letter of the law, but definitely not the spirit. Sweeney is calling it a travesty of obstruction.
A travesty of obstruction. Wow.
So Apple did permit alternative app stores, which the law required. But, and this is critical, they did not allow app downloads directly from the web.
Ah, so you still have to go through a store.
You do. And the real kicker, it's the fees.
It always comes down to the fees, doesn't it? Let's talk about them.
Apple is imposing what they're calling competition-crushing fees. So if a developer uses a third-party payment system in their app, Apple still takes 21%.
21%. And what about purchases made outside the app?
If the purchase is made on the web through, say, a link from the app, Apple still wants 15%.
That sounds a lot like if you owned a retail store and your landlord said, sure, use your own cash register, but I still get 21% of every single sale.
That analogy is completely spot on.
It makes no sense. It just eliminates the whole reason to use a third-party processor.
That's exactly Epic's argument. These huge percentage fees have nothing to do with covering Apple's actual costs for IP or app review. They're designed specifically to make it financially impossible for anyone to compete with Apple's own 30% cut.
And we've seen this exact playbook before, right? Here in the U.S.
We have. When a U.S. judge ruled Apple had to allow external payment links, they did, but then they immediately tried to slap high commissions on those outside sales anyway.
And the court didn't like that.
Not at all. Yeah. The appeals court was clear. They said Apple can get fair compensation for its IP for the labor, but they can't just use percentages to block all outside commerce.
Which brings us to Sweeney's core proposal, and I think this is the key insight. He's not saying it should be free.
Right. He's saying, look, if you want an app to go through review with custom links, maybe there's a fee of, say, a few $100.
A reasonable fixed cost, something that actually covers the work being done.
Exactly. It separates the cost of the service from the act of blocking competition. And by insisting on percentages, Apple is basically turning a legitimate IP claim into a global monopoly policy.
So what's next for Epic in Japan?
They're filing a formal complaint with the Japanese Fair Trade Commission. They're hoping the regulatory pressure just keeps building country by country until this whole model breaks.
It's a fascinating story. The implications for what you, the user, end up paying for software are just huge.
Absolutely. And moving from these huge corporate feuds to nation-state level threats, our next story pivots to crypto security. The numbers here are just startling.
They really are. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea, the DPRK, has set a catastrophic new record for crypto theft this year.
That's right. North Korean hackers stole a record $2.02 billion in cryptocurrency in 2025.
$2 billion.
And that's a 51% increase over last year. It brings their grand total to almost $7 billion.
That is just staggering. It's not just hacking. That's a major funding stream for a nation state. What was the main driver behind that record number?
It was really a shift in strategy. They're doing fewer attacks, but they're going after much, much larger targets.
So quality over quantity.
Exactly. There was one single massive compromise of the Bybit exchange back in February. That one incident was for $1.5 billion.
Wow.
That one heist drove the entire record. They accounted for 76% of all service compromises this year. They're going straight for the big centralized exchanges.
So how are they getting in? I mean, these exchanges are supposed to be fortresses. This can't just be a simple phishing scam.
No, it's military-grade sophistication. We're seeing two really terrifying tactical shifts.
What?
First, the ultimate insider threat. They are literally embedding their own IT workers inside crypto companies to get privileged access.
That is next-level espionage. You can't build a firewall against someone who already works inside the building.
You can't. And the second tactic is hyper-sophisticated social engineering. They're impersonating recruiters from big Web3 and AI firms.
So they're pretending to offer jobs.
Yes. They create these completely fake, elaborate hiring processes. They draw in a crypto professional, and the final step, the technical screen, is actually a Trojan horse designed to steal all their security credentials.
That's just insidious. It turns someone's career ambition into a vulnerability. So, okay, they steal this colossal amount of money. How do they actually launder it? How do you turn $2 billion in crypto into cash?
Well, what's fascinating is how good they are at it. They're incredibly sophisticated. Unlike other criminals who move huge sums at once, the DPRK breaks their payments into smaller pieces, usually under $500,000.
It's like breaking $1 million bill into thousands of smaller notes to avoid suspicion.
That's a perfect way to put it. They're deliberately trying to fly under the automated red flags. And researchers have mapped out their playbook.
There's a pattern.
A very consistent 45-day cycle after a major theft. First, they move the funds through DeFi protocols and mixers to hide the trail. Then, they systematically move it towards regional cash-out points, showing a strong preference for Chinese-language money services and mixers.
So they have facilitators on the ground helping them.
It seems so. And they actively avoid the DeFi lending platforms that other criminals tend to use, which shows they have a very specific system.
So here's the question for our listeners. These are huge attacks on big exchanges. What does this mean for the average person who just holds a little bit of crypto?
And this is the most important connection. The threat vector is widening. Even though the dollar amount stolen from individuals went down this year, the number of successful attacks on personal wallets surged to 158,000 incidents.
So they're hitting more people for smaller amounts?
Exactly. 80,000 unique victims. It means if you hold any crypto at all, you are a target. Your personal security, especially being aware of these social engineering tactics, is more important than it has ever been.
A very sober reminder. Okay, let's pivot to our third and final story. This one combines social media, politics, and some of the most futuristic technology imaginable.
Get ready for this one. Trump Media and Technology Group, TMTG, which is the parent company of Truth Social, just announced a massive $6 billion all-stock merger with a Google-backed fusion energy company called TAE Technologies.
Okay, stop. That is a huge leap. We're going from social media posts to literally trying to harness the power of the sun. What is the vision here?
The plan is to start construction on what they're calling the world's first utility-scale fusion power plant.
Wow.
They want it running at a 50-megawatt capacity after the deal closes in mid-2026. And the whole thing is a massive bet on the power needs of the coming AI data center boom.
AI needs a staggering amount of power, so I get the demand. But fusion, it still feels like science fiction. What is this company, TAE, that TMTG is merging with?
Well, TAE is a very serious player. They were founded way back in 1998. They've raised $1.3 billion from huge backers like Google Research, who's been a partner for a decade, and also giants like Chevron.
So they have real credentials.
They do. And crucially, they have already built and safely operated 5 different fusion reactors. They are deep in this science.
And for anyone who needs a quick refresher, what exactly is fusion?
Think of it as the same process that fuels the sun. Instead of splitting heavy atoms, like in traditional nuclear power, fusion forces 2 light atoms together under extreme pressure and heat.
And that releases a huge amount of energy.
A huge amount. The promise is limitless, clean power, but the challenge is getting more energy out of the reaction than the massive amount you have to put in to start it.
Okay, let's talk about the money. TMTG reported a $54.8 million net loss last quarter. So how does a company that's losing money finance a $6 billion science project?
This is where it gets really interesting, and it comes down to TMTG's unique financial strategy.
Right.
While their social media operations aren't profitable, they have a very unusual digital asset strategy.
Based on Bitcoin.
Right. They reported generating $15.3 million in realized income just from something called option premiums in the last quarter.
Okay, let's unpack that for a second. What's an option premium in simple terms?
Think of it this way. An option is just a contract that gives someone the right to buy or sell an asset, like Bitcoin, at a set price in the future. TMTG sells those rights to other people.
Yeah.
The money they get paid immediately just for selling that contract, that's the premium. So they're getting paid cash up front by playing in the volatility of the crypto market.
So the company is using income generated from the volatility of its crypto holdings to fund the clean, limitless energy of the future.
That is the core insight. The high-risk, high-reward digital economy is literally fueling high-risk, high-reward deep technology.
Wow. This merger just shows that the old rules of what a company is have completely dissolved. We're in a world where media influence and digital asset strategies are now funding essential, futuristic infrastructure.
It is definitely an unusual business model, but you can't say it isn't ambitious.
An absolutely amazing connection.
Before we wrap up for today, we do want to give a shout out to another one of our great partners.
That's right. We want to thank Skony, the premium golf shoe store. If you're looking for that perfect blend of quality, comfort, and style, whether you're on the course or just for a refined, casual look, Skony has you covered.
And you can get a great deal. Just use the promo code SNARFUL at checkout on their website. You'll get 15% off your entire purchase. Just head over to skony.com.
All right, let's quickly recap the forces we explored today. First, we saw the Epic and Apple fee battle escalate in Japan, with Tim Sweeney fighting what he calls competition-crushing fees that are designed to obstruct, not compensate.
Second, we covered the critical threat from the DPRK, which set a new record by stealing over $2 billion in crypto this year, driven by massive heists and some incredibly sophisticated social engineering tactics.
And finally, we looked at that massive $6 billion merger where Trump media is making a huge bet on fusion power, using income from its Bitcoin option strategy to fund the future energy needs of the AI boom.
It was a day that really showed us that technology and finance are completely inseparable from geopolitics and even basic physics. The lines between a social media company, a spy operation, and a power utility are just completely blurring.
It truly makes you wonder what piece of physical infrastructure the next major digital platform is going to buy. If fusion is on the table, what's to stop a tech giant from merging with a water utility? That's the question to mull over this weekend.
We're here to help at Snorful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.